Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome. I'm so excited that you've chosen to be here tonight. As you can see, if you've been here on my channel, welcome back to my channel. If you've been here for any length of time, you'll see that I'm in a different location than I normally am. I am traveling. I'm traveling on business right now, and I am getting ready to be right there for about 14 hours, right there in that little spot right there where that wrinkle in that pillow is. That's where I'm going to be for about 14 hours. But welcome. This is the global community for adult survivors of complex trauma, all forms of complex trauma, all types of trauma in the form of abuse. We focus mainly on CPTSD symptoms that are brought on by ongoing abuse that usually, not always, but usually begins in childhood. So I had this entire everything planned for you tonight with a screen share and the whole deal, but I'm traveling and I'm running out of gas, you guys. I'm just like a little bit tired. I've been awake for, over 24 hours, and I'm excited to be here with you to lead this open discussion, this very candid discussion about not only DID, dissociative identity disorder, but dissociation in general. And I know if you're familiar with simple PTSD or classic PTSD, and then you compare and contrast it to what is known as CPTSD or complex PTSD as per the ICD-11, which is the international somewhat sort of kind of version of the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Illnesses, 5th edition. The DSM-5 does not recognize CPTSD as a diagnosis. However, it does diagnose and recognize as a construct DID, and if I'm not mistaken, DDNOS. So we're going to have a candid discussion tonight about dissociation, about dissociative identity disorder, about my feelings on the split down the middle of the mental health community. There is a split down the middle. It is controversial. There are two sides to what scientific practitioners, science-based practitioners, and even academia. There are two very distinct sides that they take, and they both are, as Dr. Grande says, digging in their heels a little bit on this. And I happen to fall on and agree with the side when we're discussing dissociative identity disorder, DID. I fall on the side where the researchers, the clinicians, believe that it is brought on by trauma. It is very well documented that trauma causes dissociation, particularly in children. And there is still yet a huge portion of the mental health community that believes that not only does DID not exist, but there are the people out there that are presenting with these symptoms are faking it. And there's a reason that they believe that. I understand there are people in research studies that are trained to sort of act out what DID looks like. And there are reasons for the split in the community. I get it. I just happen to fall distinctly on the side of the mental health community that believes that not only does DID exist, but it is brought on by trauma, and it is not, there's a fancy word for it, basically they're saying that it's a, oh gosh, what's the word? I'll tell you the word. I'll tell you the word. Just a moment. Hold, please, and I'll look at the word. How are you guys feeling in the meantime? Tell me how you're feeling. If you, oh, I feel like I want to make sure that I mention this now, because I get people that show up on our channel and they say, you are not very welcoming. You do not welcome people. You only say hi to the same people every week. But that's not the case. Who I say hi to every week are people that send in their questions, and the way that they send in their questions is by tagging one of our moderators, like Shannon or Poppy or Matt, and then they send me your questions, because I'm not looking at the chat box right now. There's no chat box here for me to look at, because I have the inability to pay attention to what I'm trying to say and try to lead this discussion in our community if I were able to see all the typing going on. Like, I just don't see it. I can come back, mute myself, of course, because who wants to listen to their own voice? Let's be real. And then try to read like what it is that you guys have said. I haven't been able to do that to every video, but I am able to do that occasionally, like when I have extra time on my hands. So there is a word for this that's going on. So there are some videos that I will post in the comment section of this video after the fact that I would love for you all to listen to or watch. There are some lectures that have taken place over in Grand Rapids, Michigan. There's a gentleman in Texas, Canada-born, medical school in Canada, but practices in Texas. He is absolutely amazing. And then, of course, there's Dr. Grande. He's always been one of my favorites, Dr. Todd Grande. And I'm trying to find his video on the 2 theories of dissociative identity disorder. Trauma versus iatrogenic. It's a controversy. Here we go. Iatrogenic is just a fancy word for they're basically saying that the therapists are planting the ideas in the heads of the clients and the patients so that they will present with these symptoms. They're rewarding the clients and the patients for having DID. Everything that I discussed tonight is based on 2 papers. One is published in 2014 by Boysen and colleague, and the second is published in 2016 by Brand and colleagues. And let's see. Yeah, there's half of them that believe that DID is brought on by trauma, and the other half, let me tell you exactly what the other half believe this to be. Let me tell you what iatrogenic means. That way you understand why I'm so like eye roll to the max. Like, please, are you kidding me right now? So with regard to DID, okay? Sorry, I'm wearing airplane clothing. So with regards to DID, there are half the community over here, which is where I reside, over here. Not to be confused with me being there for 14 hours, because that's a good spot for me to be in right there. But where I am going to be tonight during this discussion, split down the middle is the mental health community, the clinicians and the scientists and the researchers. Over here, they believe that DID is brought on by trauma. Over here, they believe that DID is caused by therapists and clinicians and doctors and psychiatrists explaining or speaking about DID, or rewarding the patient or the client for presenting with the symptoms of DID. And so it causes them to act like that more. And let me just give you my theory. because I'm pretty fired up about this, obviously. And like this has literally been my existence for weeks. I've been studying a lot of this because it's driving me crazy to see these people that I look up to and respect, and I sit under their teaching and I read their books and I listen to their lectures and I read their papers that are published in medical journals, that are published globally. And they're literally saying that DID is not caused by childhood trauma, bad parenting, severe neglect, abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, all types of abuse, okay? They literally believe that them mentioning and rewarding the patient for acting out dissociative identity disorder or multiple personalities, they literally think that's the cause of it. And this is what the deal is. This is what I'm fired up about. Those researchers and clinicians and scientists and psychiatrists, and let's just be real, drug companies, they also believe mostly that DID, and there is some validity to this. The research does support this, that DID is quite often comorbid with what has been diagnosed technically as borderline personality disorder. Okay, so those who are presenting with DID symptoms also present with borderline personality disorder. And they believe, I believe the reason that they believe the DID is brought on by that is because they're describing the client, the patient, as someone who is suicidal, very much, very manipulative, attention-seeking, self-harming, needing constant approval and attention and craving that. And so they've diagnosed somebody with borderline personality disorder, which those who are living with diagnosis of borderline personality disorder, they're going through a lot. And then yet, on top of that, they're being invalidated by their parts that are showing up. And these researchers and scientists and psychiatrists, as I understand it, believe that it's not a legit diagnosis, that not only does it not exist, but it just is brought on by these doctors and clinicians and therapists and helping professionals rewarding the behavior of presenting with dissociative symptoms. So as you can see, it's kind of a lot going on. It's something that I'm pretty passionate about because I've spent a lot of years studying dissociation, not DID as a construct. I'm not a professional that is an expert in DID or DDNOS. I don't pretend to be, but let me just take a drink of water. Like, I really need my big old mason jar, right? Because I drink that in like one gulp. See, the thing is, I've spent a lot of years studying the aspects of dissociation as they pertain to CPTSD symptoms and the way that classic PTSD or simple PTSD differs from complex PTSD. Hence the foundation, CPTSD Foundation, because it's my passion. Like, I really want people that are not able to have a legitimate diagnosis to have a place to come where they can just be. What I have a problem with, and what I want to hear from you, I want to answer all your questions if I possibly can. I don't even know what I can add to this, but I will do my very, 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 very best. I want everyone watching to know that if you receive any information from anyone out there that doesn't believe that DID exists, or that believes that it exists solely as a result of a helping professional basically telling you what to do or rewarding you for acting a certain way and presenting with DID symptoms, I just want you to know that I don't feel that way. I just want you to know that I believe you. I believe you. I believe that your DID symptoms were birthed in trauma. I believe that your trauma was severe. So severe that there was a splitting, and that you have so much unresolved childhood trauma that has not been addressed and sat with and healed, that it manifests itself in all the different ages of you when you were abused, depending on where you are and what you're doing. I just want you to know I believe you. I believe you. I believe that you were traumatized. I believe that you endured probably lots of physical abuse, for sure, verbal and emotional, psychological abuse, possibly even sexual abuse, maybe even ritual abuse, religious abuse, systemic abuse, maybe exploitation. There's a lot. There's a lot that you've been through, and I just want you to know that I believe you. And I will never be over here on this side as one of those people, whether I'm a layperson or a researcher or a helping professional or a trauma-informed advocate or whatever it is you want to call me, Mama Bear. I will never be over here saying what you have doesn't exist. And if it does exist, it's just because someone suggested it to you and you thought it was a good idea, and so you acted it out. I will never say that. Never, ever, ever, ever. There are so many members of our community that have younger parts of themselves that show up in different ways at different times, who may not even be living with a diagnosis of DID or DDNOS, but it doesn't make it any less real. I'm one of those people, believe it or not. Me. That's me. I see a trauma therapist once a week. When I'm traveling, I talk to her on the phone. It's not like I skip. I don't just decide I'm not going to heal this week. You know, I focus on trauma therapeutic modalities, somatic experiencing, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, expressive modalities, IFS, internal family systems. There is some structural dissociation that is definitely a part of what's going on. I don't for a minute believe that those parts of me that are still healing, that they just show up because someone rewards them for acting like they're broken, or they show up as however they present in my trauma therapy sessions. Like, I know that the parts that I'm healing from when I was really, really little are a result of horrific physical, emotional, psychological, sexual, exploited, like you name the type of abuse, like seriously. So who am I to ever say that what is going on with you doesn't exist. And if it does exist, it's only because a clinician or a helping professional suggested it. So that is a controversy that goes on in the mental health community amongst researchers, clinicians, helping professionals, psychiatry, and let's just face it, pharmaceutical companies, drug companies. So I do believe that a lot of those of us who have dissociation, whether it be predictable bouts of dissociation or unpredictable bouts of dissociation, I do believe that oftentimes it is comorbid, meaning that it coexists with other things like depression, anxiety, OCD, PTSD, and as per the ICD-11, CPTSD. So that's where I stand. That's the side of the fence that I stand on this particular topic. And I do always love a healthy discourse. So keep it classy. Any unkind or rude or ridiculous, horrible, abusive comments will be deleted immediately and you will be blocked from this channel. Please keep that in mind. You will be blocked because anyone that arrives here deserves to be welcomed and deserves to be treated with kindness and love and mutual respect. And if you are in a position where you want to wield your sword of academia and tell me how wrong I am and give me all the 12 reasons why DID doesn't exist, blah, 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 then please do so with the utmost respect and consideration, as I have presented this with respect and consideration. This is my channel, and I will delete you and I will block you. And I won't have anyone being abusive to any of my community members who are living with dissociative symptoms, DID, diagnosed or undiagnosed, and struggling every single day of their life to just want to feel better. And nothing anyone says is going to convince me that it doesn't exist or that it just exists because somebody suggested it. So the iatrogenic argument versus the trauma argument, in my opinion, we're just going to say that I don't think I could be swayed at this point. I don't think I could be swayed to believe that there's, not to say that there's not an iatrogenic element to other forms of, the mental health community. I'm sure that there's an argument for that. But just this one in particular, I'm very passionate about just because it's an area that I really care deeply for and that I study a lot and that I hang out with a lot of these people. My people, my tribe, my tribe, my people, my family, my friendly family of choice. Many of them are living with DID or DDNOS, or at least some portion of their day is spent dissociating because a minor bout of stress came their way. And since their brain protected them from horrific stress when they were younger, they get triggered into what they now know to be dissociation. And they just lose time sometimes. And it's not because they did anything wrong. It's because they were abused horrifically and unnecessarily by people who were probably their parents or people who knew their parents, and nobody protected them. So, yeah, that's where I stand on all this. Kind of a different type of discussion we're having tonight. I know that this isn't the type of discussion we normally have. But I'm excited to hear the healthy discourse and take part in the healthy discourse that usually will happen on this channel. So if you haven't subscribed to Dr. Todd Grande's channel, he's amazing. He puts out YouTube videos on scientifically informed fact-based mental health disorders. And this one particular video that I watched this morning led me to watch another 2.5-hour lecture by a gentleman that I'm going to tell you about right now. This video answers questions about the controversy around the mental disorder named dissociative identity disorder, or DID. It is an official mental disorder in the DSM, and the criteria for DID are listed there in the DSM. We see a disruption of identity characterized by 2 or more distinct personality states. In some cultures, these distinct personality states may be referred to as possession. And then he goes on to just explain what it is that is happening on both sides of the fence. And then when you're done watching that video, watch a video by a gentleman by the name of,
I'll give you a quick,
Dr. Colin A. Ross. You will be mind blown. This man is, not only is he brilliant, he will validate every ounce of your existence and everything that you've been through. He did a particular lecture back in 2016 that is one of my favorites. And I believe it was in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And it was, I don't know, in the winter time. I forget exactly when it was. But he goes into great detail about this sort of controversy regarding dissociative identity disorder. And then he goes on to educate us about schizophrenia and what people originally, like the original people who originally founded the word schizophrenia, and then how that ties into the way DID presents, and how they were trying to originally say that it was genetic, but then they got twins, identical twins, where one had schizophrenia and one didn't, and there were a whole bunch of them, and therefore it's not genetic. You know, it's not almost always genetic. So it's environmental, you know, like abuse, like bad parenting. So anyway, he goes on to really just describe everything, and then presents on a whole bunch of different lectures, different papers, different medical journals. He's written tons of books, textbooks, all kinds of, I mean, he's been around since like the 70s or something. He's just amazing. Anyway, he has a practice. He practices actually at a hospital in Texas. So anyway, Dr. Todd Grande, huge fan. Please subscribe to his YouTube channel. If you would like scientifically informed, fact-based YouTube videos about mental health constructs and quote-unquote disorders in the DSM, and just other interesting videos that are all mental health based. You'll walk away smarter always. And then don't forget to look up Dr. Colin A. Ross, MD. Those are two I definitely just recommend you guys just binge them. Just binge watch them, because you will walk away feeling so validated and just so much smarter, and just knowing like, wow, I'm really informing myself about what's going on with my own mental health. You know what I'm saying? So thank you to Declan, who sent in a question. Thank you to Francesca, who sent in a question. And I will take questions for 2 more minutes. And then after the 2 minutes is up, whoa, this chair leans way back. Like, wow, we won't be doing that. No. I just can't, like, I can't just relax, though. I have to, like, sit up completely. Like, where's the lock on this thing? I don't think they have a lock. So, yeah, I'll take questions for 2 more minutes. And before I switch in to answering questions, particularly a question from Declan and a question from Francesca, and anyone else who sends in a question within the next 60 seconds. We're a little light tonight, guys. Gosh, there's only like 40 of us here. Normally, like there's 50 or 60. Maybe it's because I switched up the topic at the last minute. Maybe that's what it is. But before I switch into questions, I have something that I made for you. This is to each and every one of you who sent in a video or an audio or an email for the big project that I'm working on with this huge organization that is possibly going to help us do like a Kickstarter campaign and sort of get the word out about the work that we're doing here at CPTSD Foundation. Not here at this hotel, but like here, like at our foundation. So yeah, so I made you something. So I wish I had some sweet music to play. Maybe I can find a, maybe I can, what if it messes up? What if it messes up my my Wi-Fi and you can't hear the music and then it doesn't come back on? Let's just try. Okay, here we go. Oh, someone else is listening. Oh, this is my husband's account. I can't play sweet music while I do this for you. All right, let them listen. Never mind. Bummer. All right. Well, I was going to play sweet music and then do this for you, but instead I'll just do this for you. So thank you. I couldn't play the sweet music while I did that, but hopefully you understand the sentiment. Oh, I'm so sore. Forgive my wrinkled clothing and my messy hair and I can barely see and I'm really sore because I've been on an airplane. But thank you to Molly Black and Blue. Thank you to Vi. And again, Francesca, and again to Declan. So I'm going to go ahead and answer questions now for the next 27 minutes. And then I'm going to be there for 14 hours, hopefully. Or as long as I can possibly sleep. Probably 8, 6, 7, I don't know. But anyway, Declan says, do you think it is likely that many people with DID are amnesic and asymptomatic? Also, is CPTSD a variant of DID or vice versa? So, two-part question. Simply my opinion, my lived experience. I'm not a scholar or a statistician or anything like that. This is just simply my own research and my own lived experience, my own healing journey for 18 years. So I do think it's very likely that many of those living with DID are amnesic. I do. Amnesia does play a big part of it. In fact, the few people I've ever met in person that are living with a DID diagnosis their parts don't remember what the other parts are doing. In fact, that gentleman, Dr. Colin, what was his last name? Dr. Colin, is it Colin A. Ross? Is that? Dr. Colin A. Ross, MD. He actually goes into detail about this. He tells a really interesting story about this. So the answer to the first question is absolutely yes. And is CPTSD a variant of DID or vice versa? I believe they are separate constructs. That's my opinion. I believe that DID is obviously a mental disorder that is acknowledged all over the world as per the ICD-11 and the DSM-5. And CPTSD, while not recognized by the DSM-5, I'm holding out hope for the DSM-6, although I do believe that hope will be in vain because you can't fix it with a pill. You just can't. It involves establishing and maintaining healthy boundaries, cutting off contact with toxic people who plant programs in your head. It involves us changing our behaviors, changing our mindset, changing our behaviors, changing the relationships that we surround ourselves with. And so while I don't believe CPTSD will ever be acknowledged in the DSM, it is acknowledged as of June 2018 in the ICD-11 as a legit construct. And I do believe that it is its own construct. I do believe that it is separate from PTSD, and I do believe that it is separate from DID. And I don't believe that DDNOS is enough of an umbrella to stretch all the way over CPTSD to cover it. I do believe that it's its own separate construct, and that's my opinion. I know Dr. Grande and a lot of other super smart, amazing people that I look up to don't agree with me, and that's okay. I'm okay that we don't agree, but that's my opinion, which is why I started an entire foundation around the construct of CPTSD, because it deserves its own studies. It deserves its own research. It deserves its own large sample size over years and decades. And I believe, Declan, can be coexisting, but I do believe that they're separate constructs. The word you use is variant. There are a lot of similarities. There are a lot of similarities. And this is what I mean by that, Declan. There are some people whom I've met in person and online that are living with a DID diagnosis who are comorbid PTSD. I'm just going to have to say, again, there are a lot of really big, smart people with a lot of letters after their name that I really look up to and respect a lot that disagree with me, but I believe that they are their own separate constructs. And the brilliant folks who published the ICD-11 agree with me, because they're their own separate constructs in the ICD-11 as of June 2018. And I'm so grateful for that. I mean, it's just one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Like, it's the possibilities of those in our community, the countless people who are on YouTube and on Google and reading medical journals that they don't even understand, and spending way too much money on books that they're just desperate for answers. They're buying courses, and they're spending time in libraries, and they're flying all over the world, and they're just desperate, in and out of Facebook groups, in and out of Twitter chats, desperate to feel valid, that what they're experiencing is real. And I believe that the ICD-11 giving CPTSD the nod, that it is its own separate construct, I believe that's a huge step and can only do good things. So I hope I answered your question sufficiently, Declan. So good to see you. Francesca says, everyone has some degree of unexpressed grief due to trauma, which has not been acknowledged, processed, and integrated. I am getting in touch with pain that I had to split off, pain that I did not have the capacity to feel at the time of the trauma. I feel I have cultivated the capacity to be with split off pain now, although it is still very difficult. Yeah. And certain days it's like more difficult than others, right? I mean, I can only speak for myself. I can only speak for myself that like certain days, I feel pretty integrated. I feel pretty strong on certain days, and that I've been able to sit with the pain and acknowledge it and listen to it, and what does my body need, and how can I process that? How can I show up for myself? I resonate deeply with a lot of what you've written here. You know, when you say I'm getting in touch with pain that I had to split off, right? Pain that I did not have the capacity to feel at the time of the trauma. You know, our brain, Francesca, it's amazing, isn't it? How our brain protected us during the time of the childhood trauma and took us somewhere else, completely dissociated us because it was too much to live through. I think when we're older and our brain decides that it's safe, whether we're in a safe relationship or a safe physical location or a safe job or a safe place in our lives, and our brain decides, okay, we're going to allow her to remember these things now. Sometimes I wish that I could, you know, question my brain's judgment because I'm like, whoa, I wasn't ready for that. But then again, I just like, I'm learning to trust my own process, and I know that you are too. So it's so wonderful to hear you share. And I do agree with the statement that everyone in the whole world has some degree of unexpressed grief due to trauma. There's some statistic out there that I read recently, and maybe it was during one of these lectures on the plane, I have no idea, but you know, 8 people out of 10 experience trauma in their lifetime. That's 80%, you know. And there are, and as per Kathy Browse, who wrote the book most recently, she's written a few books, but the one she wrote most recently is called Don't Try This Alone. 5 out of 10 people are dealing with some level of attachment trauma. 5 out of 10. That is a mind-blowing statistic to me. And attachment trauma, for all of you out there, plays hand in hand with DID. Attachment trauma and DID are like cousins, you know. Attachment trauma causes a lot of what is being acknowledged. The symptoms and the diagnosis of DID, you know, to this day. So when, I mean, obviously they're not synonymous because not everyone who is living with some form of attachment trauma is living with dissociation. But I just thought that statistic was interesting, you know, 5 out of 10. And then that 8 out of 10 have experienced trauma. So I just find that very interesting. So thanks for using your voice and thanks for sharing. I always love hearing from you guys. Vi says, Athena, I was an alcoholic. They said that was my problem. But sober, I wasn't better. Finally, I learned about other things. I think whatever I have is from the trauma. Thanks for believing. You're welcome. The alcohol is never the root. Remember, if we're looking at the flowers, the flower petal, and then there's like the root of the, like, let's say this is a flower. It's a horrible flower. I wish I should keep a flower nearby when I record. But like alcohol, social media, gambling, thrill seeking, drugs, anything that is a maladaptive coping strategy is simply a petal on the flower. The root, in my opinion, is almost always trauma. I'm just going to continue to beat that dead horse. I will bang that drum till the cows come home because it's just what I believe. I believe it in every fiber of my being. I believe eating disorders, alcoholism, drug addiction, self-harm, suicide, gambling, overspending, thrill-seeking, you name it. Any type, numbing, stuffing, avoiding of any kind. It's all rooted in trauma. It's my opinion. Again, I'm going to beat that drum till the cows come home because it's just what I believe. And this is my channel. I'm allowed to say it. Right? So, again, people with a lot of letters after their names that I look up to and have a lot of respect for, and I sit under their teaching, they do not agree with me. And that's okay. Thank you for using your voice, you guys. Molly Black and Blue says, as a child, I transferred my abuse to another girl. I made up that it was her being abused. And another girl is in air quotes here, meaning like a little, like a fractured version of ourselves. As a child, I transferred my abuse to another girl. I made up that it was her being abused, not me. I also took all of my abusers and I melded them into one person, one abuser. Is that an aspect of dissociation? I'm unsure of what to call it. That, my darling, is magnificent you choosing to live and not die. That's what that is. That is the valiant, brave, miraculous little girl that you are, finding a way to survive the unsurvivable. That's what that is. Yeah. It is a part of it. It's a part of DID. They have words for it, and ways that they describe everything, and ways that they medicalize it all. Here, I have some screen shares that I haven't been able to share with you guys because they're on my phone and they're not on my laptop. I could probably transfer them, like through AirDrop or something. I'll read you some stuff. Gosh, I wish I could remember exactly how all this went today. Like all these different lectures. So, typical case descriptions of dissociative identity disorder. This is as per, was this one of the people who wrote one of those papers? Gosh, I forget what medical journal. I forget what medical journal it's from. How your brain just sort of just melts after a while if you read too much. So a typical case description of dissociative identity disorder. The delusion of being possessed is very commonly seen as a specific type of double personality. Single emotionally charged ideas or drives attain a certain degree of autonomy so that the personality falls to pieces. These fragments can exist side by side and alternately dominate the main part of the personality, the conscious part of the patient. However, the patient may also become a definitely different person from a certain moment onwards. Naturally, such patients must speak of themselves in one of their two versions or more. Or they may speak in the third person of the other two, or however many. Usually, he or she designates themselves by one of his several names. The splitting of the psyche into several souls always leads to the greatest inconsistencies. In a few cases of the other personality is marked by use of different speech and different voice. Thus, we have here two different personalities operating side by side. When specific persons speak through the patients in various cases of automatic speech, each quote-unquote person has its own special voice and distinct manner of speech. The blocking of the recall of memories, this is for Declan, someone tag Declan. The blocking of the recall of memories is a common occurrence during the examination of these patients, and that's all dissociative identity disorder patients. That's all I got. I thought I had a whole bunch more screen shares, but maybe they were duplicates. And then I have this one that's like a graph that it's like hard to explain unless I had all the other slides. But basically what this graph here proves and shows, see that top one? That's like the most, the very, very, very top, like the orangish colored one. Yeah, that's DID. This is from a sample. This is from some research that was done on some patients. And going down the list, we have DID being the highest, DDNOS, schizophrenia, all the way down to the lowest being depression. And the one right above it is anxiety. How fascinating is it that the two most common mental health constructs that are socially acceptable or sort of like most talked about are the least occurring? It's just so interesting how more people out there are living with DID. It's just so, it's maddening to me that there can be an entire argument where people just want to refuse that something even exists. Talk about gaslighting. I think that's why it pisses me off so much. I just realized something. I literally just realized why this pisses me off so much, because I feel gaslit by these like super fancy, awesome people that I respect and look up to, and I sit under their teaching. Like, okay, so this gentleman, so this gentleman that I told you about, he did a study in China. He was in, I want to say he was in Shanghai. So now, mind you, there's like the Beck and the DCSI, and there's the this, and there's the that, and there's all these different battery tests. There's all these different scientifically based, research supported ways that they test people for symptoms of dissociative identity disorder, specifically, like a whole bunch of different ones. Okay, so just I'm going to say all this in closing. I hope nobody misses this. Y'all, need to like tell people not to leave, because this is the thing right here. This is the thing. This drives it all home. Okay. And then I'm going to end like right in 6 minutes. This gentleman, I believe it was Dr. Colin Ross, the doctor I told you about, the MD. He went to China and he did this huge study, a controlled study, using all of these different things, the different ways that you measure symptoms, and then like cross-reference it all, and categories and batteries of like tests and like things to see if people actually have these types of to study the symptomology. Okay. And the whole reason behind this one study in China was to disprove the people over here, the ones that say that it's either doesn't exist, or how do you say that word again? Oh, dang it. You know the word I'm talking about. Etymology. No, it's like idea, something. It's just social. Like they're saying that the therapists and the psychiatrists and the doctors and the helping professionals plant the idea. Society plants the idea in people's heads that DID exists. And there are people out there that are trained for hours, sometimes weeks and months, on how to act out DID to show people what it is that it looks like, so that when they see it, they'll know what it is, so that clinicians will know when someone's presenting that way. So I get it that there are fake DID people out there, and the people over here that don't believe it's from trauma, they don't believe it's caused by trauma. They either believe it doesn't exist or that it's societal and that it's planted in the minds of the patients by the doctors and stuff, and that it's just faked. Okay? The whole reason he went to China to do this study, huge sample size for this research. They don't have societal aspects of DID in China. It's not talked about in the culture. It's not in the soap operas. It's not acknowledged. It's completely, it's nowhere. It's nothing that anybody would even think of. They don't acknowledge it at all. Yet, the sample size, huge percentage of them presented with the symptoms. So, logic would dictate. This is why I feel so gaslit and so pissed off about it. It's like, you go to some other country on the other side of the world where they've never even heard of it. They're not sitting around binge watching YouTube videos on people that are making videos about their 12 different personality styles. They don't have soap operas on television or movies called Sybil. I mean, they don't have any of that. They've never even heard of it. They've never even been introduced to the concept of DID. Yet, this large sample size, like a China size, was pulled aside, and many of them presented with the symptoms. So in my personal and professional opinion, which does not include a whole bunch of beautiful letters after my name and decades of college, like a lot of my colleagues and people that I really look up to, my personal and professional opinion is that study done in China and many other studies completely disprove the hypothesis of these people on this side of the fence that say that DID either doesn't exist or is not brought on by trauma. So again, I'm over here. This is where you'll always find me. right over here. So I hope you'll share this video with someone in our DID community, someone that needs to know that we believe in them and that we love them and we accept them, and that we're doing the homework and we're reading the books and watching the lectures and going to the library and reading medical journals, and we care about them and we believe them. And what they have going on is valid, it's real, and it's its own separate construct, and it's not made up. It's not just a social deviance and things that are planted in their minds by therapists that they're just making up. Like, no. I hope you'll share this video with someone you know or love that cares about DID, or that cares about the DID community, or maybe is someone who's living with either predictable or unpredictable bouts of dissociation, or maybe some other DID symptoms. And thank you for taking part in this conversation. If this video was interesting, I hope that you will give it a thumbs up. And I hope you'll consider subscribing to this channel. And thank you. Thank you so much for being here. We need to be talking about these things. One of the hashtags I used today was everything is talkaboutable. You know, we need to be better about talking about the hard stuff, talking about the tough topics. When we talk about the tough topics, we save lives. We help save lives just by talking about the hard topics. I really believe that. So thanks for being a part of that. Thanks for sharing this video or giving it a thumbs up or subscribing to this channel. And thanks for leaving a comment in the description on your opinion, respectfully, of course, because anyone who wants to be a complete douchebag and rude person will be deleted and blocked, because I don't play that. And everybody deserves to be treated with kindness and respect and love and welcome. So thanks for sticking around to the very end. I love you guys so much, and I will see you back here next Monday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, and I might have a special guest with me. Maybe. He's a super semi-famous podcaster, blogger, award-nominated podcaster, blogger, huge trauma advocate, very well known in our community. And it's possible that I'll have him as a special guest next week. Maybe. I don't know if he'll say yes, but cross your fingers. Okay? All right. I love you guys. I'll see you next week. Bye. Everything is talkaboutable, remember. Okay, bye.